Proverbs 16:9, in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. So you can plan all you want, but God might change things. You can plan all you want, and God might have a different idea and redirect you. Sometimes as we go through life step by step, we are in this opportunity, and then that door closes, and we move over here, and we do this. And sometimes we look back, and we had our plan, and it wasn't what we thought. But then we look back, and we see what God did through it. When I first got out of high school, I went to Bible college for a year, and then I dropped out because I didn't like the schools. And I thought that I needed to get back into Bible college, or I was not living my life in God's will. And so I was working at this company, and I ended up in one area for a bit, and then I got promoted to the next one and learned a different skill in the next one. And so it was kind of bouncing around, and I thought that I was wasting my time, but actually God was using it as a training opportunity and helping me to mature, and also helping provide for our family. And so we were volunteers in ministry, and I look back and I see how God was totally in it, though during the time I thought that I was totally outside of God's will. Have you ever planned your way, planned your route? There's been many different times in my life where I've planned and strategized my route. So next week, I'll hit the 30 years of being in full-time Christian ministry. And when I was preparing to go into Christian ministry all those years ago, I was trying to figure out how I could work full-time, how I could be the volunteer youth pastor at my church, how I could take classes from 2 different Bible colleges and balance it all out. And my pastor was my mentor. And so I strategized and I planned and I looked at the course catalogs and I looked at everything, and I figured out that if you have a 2-year degree, that you can get a 4-year degree at Crown without getting the gym credit, the physical education credit, which kind of bothered me that I'd have to drive in to go play basketball for an hour for a term to get my gym credit. So I figured out that if I took these courses from Moody Bible Institute and these courses from Crown, and then I transferred some of the courses from Crown to Moody and Moody to Crown, and I also got my work to pay for some of the classes, because they said they would pay for college classes if they related to your work. So I took English composition and writing and speech, and I think they paid for science too, and I figured out how to get them to pay for some of that stuff. And so I figured it all out, and I had planned my route. I had worked something out with my wife where we had a schedule where I would study at this time and be with her and the family at this time, and worked out this whole thing. And the plans eventually worked out. There were so many times I had to reroute. Something would come up and I would fall behind and I'd reschedule. But I just kept moving it forward and I kept pushing on, and I was able to get to my destination. I think it was in May of 1996, I graduated from both Moody Bible Institute and Crown College on the same day. And it worked out. It was a good plan. And a godly pastor said there's going to be people that will come to you and offer you opportunities before you finish getting those degrees. He's like, you need those degrees because those are keys that will open doors as you move forward in life. And so I don't know if you've done that before, if you have planned and plotted and prayed and strategized to plan your route to get to where you wanted to go. But I think this is a very interesting proverb. It says, put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your house. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about farming. We're talking about in those days in ancient Hebrew wisdom that Solomon is making it clear that the most important thing is that you get your fields planted, you get your outdoor stuff done so that you will have a crop, so that you can eat and afford to build a house. And you put that first. What does this mean to you if you are not a farmer, if you don't have any fields? Why does this matter to you? What if maybe you saw it was a proverb about priorities and putting the important things first? And maybe your conclusion is, well, I don't have any fields and I don't have any crops and I already have a house. But what if I committed to read my Bible first before I jumped on social media or read the newspaper or started playing video games for the day? What if I prioritized that? What if that was what I did? What if I sought to get the experience that I needed and the training that I needed and the certification I needed before applying for that career job or before asking for a raise or to be promoted? What if I thought about what is it in my life that is bringing results and what isn't? And maybe you quit doing the things that don't bring results and you do more of the things that do bring results. So back then, preparation came before possession. Responsibility came before reward, and it's a timeless principle that should work for us to make the right priorities, to establish the route so that we can look forward and be prepared for other opportunities. When there is a need for someone to step in as a leader, the need is usually right now. It's not, well, we really need you to be the leader, so why don't you go get trained up and come back in 3 months or 3 years, and then we'll have you do it. Usually it's like, when there's a need, we need a person now. And it's the person who is trained up, the person who is experienced, the person who is available, that is ready to go. Proverbs 15:22 says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And so when you get godly counsel on certain issues, that can be really helpful. Sometimes a financial planner can give you good counsel. Sometimes wise people that have been married for a long time, that have experienced ups and downs, can help you with marriage. Or sometimes people that have parented their kids can help young parents get some ideas on what to do and how to live their lives. So planning is not something we do independently of God. Wise planning is humble planning. It seeks counsel from mature believers because wisdom recognizes that none of us sees the whole picture. And then we remember Joseph interpreting the dreams in Genesis 41. I know you know the story, but so Joseph doesn't just interpret Pharaoh's dream. He says he has a solution. He has an idea. He tells Pharaoh what he should do, which is funny because he pulled out of the prison to interpret his dream, and now he's telling Pharaoh what to do. But he says, therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. So, I wonder if Joseph knew he was talking about himself, because that's what happened, and that was a good thing. And so Joseph had a plan. He was able to interpret the dream and knew what to do to put food aside so that when the famine came, that the people would be provided for, and he worked it all out. And Joseph went through so many hard times. Every time he turned around, he was trying to be godly, and he ended up in a bad situation. But I wonder if all of those bad situations trained him up to be the leader that he needed to be in the culture that was different than his in Egypt, so that he could do everything God had called him to do to save the people in that part of the world from famine. So think about that. Maybe sometimes the hard things that you have gone through have prepared you for the ministry that God has for you now or will have for you in the future. So this isn't a proverb, but Jesus said, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? All right, so think about that. Pray with your family, pray for your future steps, pray for what you're doing now, pray to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Try to plan the course of whatever it is that you want to do. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. And Psalm 119 says that your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path.